Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the closing ceremony of Adbi Exchange into the minds of 4 Pakistani authors. This was a program organized under the Alumni Small Grant supported by the US Mission in Islamabad in collaboration with the Pakistan-U.S. Alumni Network. As the name suggests, this involved interviewing 4 authors, and two of them were writing in Urdu and 2 of them writing in English. And we were able to curate it in such a way that there were 2 gentlemen and 2 ladies. And we have some representatives from this group joining us today. This was the whole idea, was to celebrate writing and to celebrate reading by talking to these authors, and also to invite the viewers into the world of ideas. Through this project, we reached 21,000, in fact, over 21,000 interests, and we garnered close to 4,000 views, and still counting because we're still promoting the video, and all of that process is still ongoing while we're doing the closing ceremony today. I was the recipient of this grant. My name is Ayesha Fazalur Rehman. I'm an alum of the Fulbright Exchange program from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, currently working in the education sector space with the Oxford Policy Management in Islamabad, and also with the Virtual University in Lahore. This is basically what I do for a living. I'm a keen gardener and an environment enthusiast in my other private. Currently serves as a public. Mr. Paul Giblin is a US diplomat and former journalist. He currently serves as a public diplomacy officer in Islamabad and oversees the Pakistan-U.S. Alumni Network. Previously, he has served in Australia, Angola, and he has been the public affairs specialist for the US Army in Afghanistan. When he was a journalist, he worked as a reporter, a news columnist, and an editor for several publications, including the New York Times. Mr. Paul and his colleague won a Pulitzer Prize, which is America's top honor in journalism, for a months-long investigation into immigration issues. I'd like to request you to say a few words, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the kind introduction. As you mentioned, my background is in writing. So many of my best friends are writers, so I'm particularly excited about this program today. So it's great to be here with this diverse group of writers. I know that you've covered several genres, including fiction and memoirs and travelogues and developmental economics. So these are all fascinating topics. I'm looking forward to hearing more. But just a little background on the small grant program that enabled this to happen. These grants, which you described already, are from the U.S. Embassy here. These grants are designed to support new voices. They provide educational and economic opportunities for Pakistani youth. They create engagement and opportunities between the people of Pakistan and its neighbors. And they also are intended to advance the public good, which we're doing today, and to promote community service in Pakistan. During the last 9 years, the Pakistan-U.S. Alumni Network, which is also referred to as PUAN a lot, it has supported more than 250 of these small grants and empowered exchange program alumni opportunities to gain more understanding about the United States and the American people, and to strengthen the mutual understanding between Americans and Pakistanis, which I believe is critical for both countries. In the near future, the Alumni Network will be supporting 2 masterclass programs on creative writing for peace. We'll also have programs on human rights and social cohesion, democracy, freedom of expression, and fact-checking. And these are additional efforts to strengthen local voices on these issues to help our bilateral relations. But for right now, I'm looking forward to the program. So thank you very much, and I'll let you go on with the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to know about all the work that the embassy is doing. I'm going to move on to introduce our guests, the participating authors, starting with Sabeeha, who's joining us from a very difficult time zone in New York right now. What time is it for you now, Sabeeha? 5:30?
It's 5:30 in the morning. The Fajr Azan just went off.
Oh, wow. Thanks for making the time for this.
My pleasure.
So let me just introduce you to the audience and Kazim, and then we're going to take it from there. So Sabeeha Rehman is now the author of 3 books. First, she's the author of the award-winning memoir, Threading My Prayer Rug, One Woman's Journey from Pakistani Muslim to American Muslim. And then she's co-authored her second book with Walter Ruby titled We Refuse to Be Enemies, How Muslims and Jews Can Make Peace, One Friendship at a Time. And now her third book called It's Not What You Think, An American Woman in Saudi Arabia is out as well. And an interfaith activist, blogger, and public speaker, she's an op-ed contributor to the Wall Street Journal and has published articles in Forward, Salon, Com, NY Daily News, and the Baltimore Sun. She lives with her husband, Khalid, in New York City. And also with us is Kazim Saeed, joining us from Karachi. Kazim is an expert on economic strategy and policy for developing countries. He's provided energy policy advice to the governments of China, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Pakistan with the World Bank. He has built business growth models for agriculture with the Asian Development Bank, the USAID, and FAO. He holds a master's degree in public affairs from Princeton and a dual bachelor's from Cornell University. Kazim's award-winning book, Do Pakistan, Har Pakistani Gharane Tak Khushhali, presents a comprehensive strategy for delivering prosperity to every Pakistani household by Pakistan's 100th birthday in 2047. So thanks for joining us. And I'm going to ask both of you what has been your experience with Adbi Exchange and with giving interviews in general, because both of you have come out with your books recently and you're doing a lot of this talking to people. And what do you think is your views on that? We're going to start with Sabeeha.
Well, thank you very much, Ayesha, for organizing this for the work of Adbi Exchange. And thank you, Paul, for spearheading this from our end at the United States State Department for peace. That should be a very interesting exercise. But getting back to you, Ayesha, I so value the work that you are doing, and through interviews with authors, you are making the world a much more cohesive place. And by giving us the opportunity to exchange ideas, you're fostering and enhancing understanding. So I very much appreciate that. The interview process, as well as book readings that I have been involved in, thanks to Zoom. With my recent book with Walter Ruby, we have clocked in about 85 book talks so far and still going. And we've been able to cover places in the United States that we could not have traveled to and beyond the United States. So having this ability to virtually participate in gatherings of people who are interested has not only made this conversation accessible to a wide range of people, but I as an author and my co-author, we go into an interview or a book talk with the purpose of transmitting our message, or as educators, and we end up becoming educated ourselves. We end up becoming learners by listening to everything that our audience has to contribute. We walk away much better informed. So I truly value the impact of these conversations, and I very much appreciate your bringing this. And congratulations for having such a wide audience, 1,000 people. My goodness, that's impressive, and I please accept my gratitude.
It's all Alia's doing. I don't know anything about that.
Thank you, Alia. Thank you, Alia. Yes.
But thank you. Yeah, I totally relate to what you're saying, that we all come out learning, because I have also, obviously this is not something I do regularly. I train people, but this is something through which I have honed my skills as well. And Ali and I were talking that we'd like to do this again as well. So yeah, it's exciting how you learn and you get out of your comfort zone.
And Kazim, I'm very
Kaz-
humbled in your presence, listening to what you have accomplished and the kind and the focus of your writing is what is so much needed in Pakistan. So grateful.
My favorite thing about Kazim's interview is the beautiful Urdu. So yeah, I think there are about less than 200 people who talk that Urdu anymore in Pakistan. So yeah, but Kazim, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Kind, Ayesha, thank you very much. I think, and thank you everyone. Thank you, Paul, for being here. I think the title of my book that Ayesha just read out, it's the English translation is Two Pakistans, Prosperity to Every Pakistani Household, which a lot of people hear and say, oh, you've written a work of fiction, because there's a lot of, cynicism about how much things can change in Pakistan. So if somebody wants to know what the journey of the author has been, I think I find that compliment. And I thank you. I can't thank you enough for that compliment, because it's a lonely journey. And it's worth its while either way. But to be asked about it with interest, I think this is a fantastic opportunity. So I really enjoyed the interview. Thank you, Ayesha, and thank you to the embassy. In terms of the wider experience of giving interviews, my time in the United States, one of the phrases I remember from that time was somebody said, writers write to find out what they think. And I found that to be correct in a way as I was writing, but now I'm realizing there is a correlate of that, that writers also give interviews to find out what they think about their experience. So it was I think it's fantastic to be invited to give a talk like this. As Sabeeha said, my goal is to get the message out there to Pakistanis that this can be done. Prosperity can be delivered, and dozens of countries have done it. So it makes all the difference if there's an audience out there and there's a platform like this. Thank you.
I think both of you, your writing has a lot of optimism in it. So it really jives well with the reader in that sense. But thank you for your comments, Kazim and Sabeeha. I'm going to hand it over to Alia now, since all of you, Paul, you're also a writer. So I'd request you to also participate in the questions that Alia is going to ask. And if you like, you can turn your camera back on. Over to you, Alia.
Well, as a reporter, I'm always happy to ask questions. So thank you.
No, you're answering questions this time, sir.
Yes, the tables have been turned. So as our program winds down, conclude our program, there are some fun questions that I want to ask all three of you. The first one being...
Alia, can you speak up a little? I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Somebody needs to mute their mic. I'm hearing sounds in the background.
I think it's the background in Alia's internet cafe, right?
Is it, Alia? Acha, chalo. Speak louder so you drown out
but,
that sound.
am I audible? Is it better now? All right, so I'm going to ask some fun questions from all three of you. Given that our program is winding down now, keeping the title of our program in mind, I wanted to ask if there was one author that you could go into the mind of, who would it be, and what would you want to ask them or want to know from them? So how about Paul, you answer first, and then Sabeeha, and then Kazim.
Okay, thank you for that question. I have always been intrigued and fascinated by Jane Austen. Considering the time in which she lived, she had to publish her work anonymously. And she may not even have known that it was her father who was trying to get her work published. And for a dad in those days, he must have been very progressive. She, in that time, for a woman to write was considered as being degrading of her femininity. And yet she was able to raise social issues in her writing, that drew attention to the concept that marriage was the only path for a woman to achieve financial independence and security and social stature. And Pride and Prejudice has been one of my all-time favorites because she tackles all those issues in this book. I would like to get into her head and ask her what it was like to publish anonymously, what it was like to go against the current. And did she have any idea that posthumously she would become such a great writer? I mean, that's what I would like to ask her. Thank you.
If I may have a go at that. I'd like to take liberty of naming two authors, if you allow. One is from the modern era, the great Urdu novelist Qurratul Ain Haider. And she lived mostly through the 20th century. She died in 2007 and is considered probably the premier Urdu novelist. And in some of her work, she has taken the span of the entire canvas of South Asian history, all the way back to the times that the earliest Hindu scriptures were written, and placed characters there and she displays this incredible mastery of that time. And there's multiple eras that she goes through and bringing the work to the modern era. I find it fascinating that somebody would have that level of mastery of the history, not only of their own culture, which is of a current nature, but also of eras gone by and eras in completely different, eschatological and historical and ethical constructs. And it's a mind that it's a mind that overwhelms you as you just read through the novels. So I think meeting her, I didn't have the chance to meet her, but I would like to ask, it didn't help that when much later, after having read her works, I found out that she finished her greatest work, Aag Ka Darya, River of Fire. It's a tour de force of this nature. She had finished it in her 20s, I think. I think that's the first question I'd like to ask her. What were you doing through your teenage and your 20s? What was your time management like? No, I mean, just to try to understand how that much information gets digested, processed, and then a work of art comes out based on that. The other person, if you allow, is from the medieval era in South Asian history, from the era of the Emperor Akbar in the Mughal era. This is in the 1500s. And the gentleman's name is Abul Fazl. And he wrote these gigantic works of encyclopedic works. I mean, it's the way I can relate the nature of the man is, he was like the encyclopedist in European history. And one of the works he wrote, he was mainly associated with the emperor and associated with writing the history of the emperor. That's one huge book and one of the primary books that historians refer to. And the other it's called the Ain-e-Akbari, which is, you can say, the Code of Akbar. And it's basically, it took me a very long time to understand why somebody would describe every aspect of the empire. And it took me a while to figure out that it's a manual on how to run the empire. If you're a governor out in the south, away from Delhi or from Agra, where the capital was that time, well, what do you do with taxes? And what do you do with, arms? What do you do with all kinds of things? So it's a breadth of command of topics of history, of armaments, of governance, etc. It's really incredible. I think the question I would ask Abul Fazl is, being a court historian and court propagandist, really, I mean, in the way I have to accept the man was a propagandist for the emperor. But there are pieces that you really learn from. I mean, there is erudition in those books. And I'd like to just understand from him how he sees it. There's a sly smile I can imagine he would have on his face. How do you keep the propagandist apart from the real erudite scholar? So that's my answer. Thanks.
Those were amazing answers from both of you. Paul, would you like to pitch in? Is there any author that you would like to go into the mind of?
You asked me? I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yes. Apologies from my end. I think it's the gallery that I'm at. But yes, would you like to answer this question as well?
I have different favorite authors depending on what month you ask me. So my answer might change from month to month. But the author who I really admire on an ongoing basis is an American author named Mark Twain. He lived in the 1800s. At that time, he wrote about American life and what it was like at that time. And he really understood people, and he had a good ear for dialogue. And I'm fascinated by his work. I think he is as much a historian as anyone else. His work is somewhat controversial now, just because life in those days is controversial by today's standard. But if I had a chance to sit down and talk to him and ask him how he was able to just capture everyday life, he was also very funny. How he's able to weave that into the written word. I admire that from any writer, but he's someone who I like all the time.
Thank you so much. So our next question, our next and final question is, can you share your opinion about how the digital world is impacting the world of reading and literature, both positively and negatively? We'll go in the same sequence, Sabeeha and then Kazim and then finally Paul.
Thank you. Yeah, so on the positive side, digital books, availability of digital books has opened up a whole new world for readers and potential readers. It's made books accessible. I can quote my book as an example, that all over the world where it is not available in hard copy in the bookstores, you can access it sitting in your room, in your own home, and read the book. It is also made books available to the elderly who, with their waning eyesight, that find the print of a book too small or too fine for their eyes, can read it on Kindle, enlarge the font size. It's enabled travelers who love to read, instead of carrying a few heavy volumes with them, just this light little digital device. It could even be the phone, and carry half a dozen books with them. It's cheaper. In my apartment, that's all I have is these two bookshelves, but if on my digital device, I have over 100 books. And it has a built-in dictionary, so you learn as you go along. So that's, and then audiobooks. Audiobooks have been a lifesaver for commuters, who are driving to work, sitting in traffic, an hour and a half drive each way, getting bored, can listen to books. People jogging, people in the gym, people on the run, audiobooks have opened up the world of reading to them. So that's been the positive side. On the negative side, social media has been like a train wreck. It's been distracting readers from reading. We've gotten into the habit of instant gratification. You go through a screen, and if it goes beyond one screen, you lose your patience, and you have no sense of accomplishment if you're reading a big book, because you're not just getting done. Whereas with a screen, you can just keep flipping from one thing to another. It's led to attention deficit disorder, and it's been a huge impediment in the world, in our aptitude and in our attitude towards reading a book. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Sabeeha.
I really agree with everything you said about the reach versions of books and the outreach. I completely agree with you. On the social media side, let me just say, I have written about how to give prosperity to every Pakistani household, and pretty much everything that's needed for that is explained at some length in the book. You can imagine this is going to be a long book. It's 600 pages. And some of my friends were like, 600 pages in the 21st century? Twitter doesn't allow 600 characters, buddy. So I think I was very clear that in every era in history, there have been very few people who are really take the time, whether it's reading a 600-page book or really, applying the, making the effort to understand issues that are beyond just the instant gratification. So I was quite clear about that. But I think now that I am trying to get the word out through the social media, I find it refreshing that I know there's only so many people who will actually buy the book and read the book. The English translation is nearly done, and that will get the word out to others. But being able to just read out a page and record it, put it out there in social media, I think it's getting an audience for this work or these ideas that I would not have had access to. And just those bite-sized messages, it actually forces me to really think about, okay, what exactly, I can write 4 pages on a specific topic, but to figure out, okay, what is a bite-sized summary of that? I find it a challenge, and if the word gets out, I think that's to the benefit. Thank you.
Good point.
Paul, can we have your opinion on this as well?
Actually, I don't disagree with anything. Everything I've heard, I agree with, particularly the social media. I think the world would be better without it, but that's my opinion. So, can I ask a question of the authors?
Please.
I have a friend who's an author, and she was doing a book signing, and one of the people in the audience asked her, what's the hardest thing about writing books? She said there's 2 difficult things. The first difficult thing is starting, and the next difficult thing is finishing. So I'd like to ask all our authors, how do you overcome those 2 monumental challenges?
Wow. You're right. The hardest part is to get started, and then after the hardest part is to finish. I write my preface or introduction after completing the book. And after completing the book, I go back to the first chapter and rewrite it again, because we all know that if your first chapter doesn't get the reader, then you've lost the reader. So I have to go over it after having completed the book. And finishing it has also been hard because I am writing memoirs, and my second book was mostly about current events. Events kept changing, and bringing it to conclusion was like, chasing the events. And I don't know if I have the magic answer to how to bring a book to conclusion, except that I would say, follow your instincts. That's what I do. It works for me.
Yeah, instinct has a lot to do with it, but I'm the kind of person who spent a lot of time trying to figure out how writers write. And I read a lot about that. So because I'm not a professional, right? Through most of the day, that's not my job. So one thing that helped me was, how they say for runners, if you're a runner, you need to know your distance. You need to know what distance you're meant to run. If you're a sprinter, don't get stuck in the marathon. And a book is like a marathon. And I think it took me a little while, but it became quite clear early on that I was meant to write a book. Now a marathon, it took some years to write the book. And I think 2 questions anybody who asks how to do this kind of project and how to get to the end, even to answer the question about how to start. I think 2 questions, one has to be very clear about. One is the book or the topic you want to write about. Is it absolutely necessary that that book be written? And if the answer is yes, I think you go to the next question. That book that is so important to be written and it's not out there, are you the only person who can write it? And if the answer to both of those, and these I came up with myself, if the answer to both of those is yes, then it won't let you go. You know, there were times when I began to realize that, you know, years into the project that, you know, it's just not, the book is getting written through me. You know, it's so many things, you start so many things. Oh, I'm going to do gardening. And, you know, 3 weeks later, you've forgotten. Or, you know, I'll start golf and you get the kit and, you know, perhaps you didn't intend to actually, you didn't need to actually get all that equipment to find out that in a few weeks, you may not, that was not for you. But the book just didn't go. And I think those two questions really, I think back to those, the answers to those. And that's my advice to anybody who wants to start and to finish a book-length project. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much for your insightful answers. And as a budding writer myself, it's really inspirational to hear from you guys and to take the advice that you're giving. And it's been an honor and a privilege to hear from all of you. And thank you so much for being a part of our project.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts. I've just learned a lot listening to you, Kazim. I've been making notes, so I feel so privileged to have been part of this conversation with you.
Likewise, Sabeeha. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks. And before we let everyone go, how can we forget our team at the US Embassy? A vote of thanks for them. In the end, a special thanks to the US Embassy for this opportunity to do a dream project with such seamless support from the entire team. I'd like to mention in particular Ms. Rukhsana and Shahid Wasim Saab for their constant support and responsiveness. Also grateful to Shanila Mazhar and Waqar Khan. On this note, we end this ceremony hoping for more such opportunities in the future. Thank you everyone for making the time. Thanks Paul, thanks Sabeeha, thanks Kazim, and everyone else.
Can we take one quick group photo as well?
Sure.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah. If you all can please turn on your cameras, or those who are willing to be part of the picture can turn on their cameras.
No, everyone turn on their cameras. Don't give them a choice.
I have to give the choice because I believe in seeking consent. Somehow, Paul, I can't see you. Maybe it's my internet. I can see everyone except you.
Sorry, I forgot doing this in the beginning, Rukhsana.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Paul, can you please turn off your video and then turn it on again? Somehow I can't see you. I can see everyone else.
I can't see Shahid Saab.
Is that working better now?
He turns on his cameras on very special occasions.
Why is that acceptable?
Okay.
That's why I always seek consent before taking pictures.
Shahid Saab, come on, you can do it. Hey, it won't look nice with two blanks. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the count of 3, please. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I need to take another one just in case Pichli Wali doesn't look nice. On the count of 3, please. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Alia and
Thank you.
Aisha.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Alia.
Thanks,
Thank you,
and
Paul.
looking forward to more
Thank
such
you, Aisha.
meetings in the future. Thanks, everyone.
I hope so.
Bye.
It's been fun. Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.